Hey guys, Bill's Victoria here. Fix the camera. Hope all is well. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for tuning into my channel, tubing. I'm a mess. Anyway, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Today I want to talk about gaining strength and courage after abuse. So some people may know, some people may not know. I was sexually molested from the age of 7 to 14 off and on. And it was a really bad experience for me in my life. I felt like when I was being abused that I had an out-of-body experience, that I was seeing myself being abused at 7 years old. And my whole trajectory of my life just shifted from positive to negative. But before I was abused, I had the beautiful opportunity to have the most amazing gift of unconditional love and support and feel safe and secure with my grandparents, and especially my grandfather. He was my daddy. He was my first knight in shining armor, the person that protected me, the person that was there for me, the person that I knew that I could be safe with and nothing would happen to me. So I'm very fortunate to have had that experience from 2 weeks old to about 4, 5 years old. So after going through that traumatic experience of being abused in that way, I became very mentally suicidal. I wanted to, in my life, I would be hallucinating and hearing stories all up in my head, telling me to do shit. One time I remember I was cooking at home and I heard a whisper, and my family, because my middle name is Victoria, my family calls me Vicky. And so with that, I pretty much was just looking around because I was cutting some chicken. I'm like, who the hell's calling me? And it was so bad that I was looking outside the window to see who was calling my name. I went outside to look on the street to see who was calling my name. And I remember my aunt always told me, when stuff don't feel right in the spiritual realm, pick up your Bible and read Psalms 23. So that's what I did. And so it just escalated to me having nervous breakdowns and not loving me. And by the time I was old enough, when sex came into play into my life, like it wasn't the very best experience because I was numb and I was disconnected and I was detached, like so detached and so disconnected within myself. And so my drug of choice was sex because that's what I thought love was due to being abused. And so I had tumultuous partners, and times when I did have sex, it was just like numb, no feeling. I'll just wake up the next morning like nothing happened. And it was just really sad. And I hit rock bottom when I was 31 years old, going on 32. And I had just broken off an engagement with a guy that I was with because he was verbally and spiritually abusive. And the first ex-husband of mine that I had was also mentally and verbally abusive and put his hands on me one time. And I allowed that stuff to happen because I didn't know any better. I was 21 and I wanted the relationship and the marriage that my grandparents had. And I didn't realize it took a lot of fucking work. Relationships, marriage is work. And it's like a full-time job. I mean, you don't get paid for the shit. You don't get time and a half, OT, medical insurance, vacation time. So you don't get that stuff. It's just like being a parent. It's just full-time. So anywho, when I was 31 years old, I broke up with this guy, and he left all his anger and just the negative energy within my home and myself because I kicked his ass out. And every day I would come home and I was so depressed. I was a functioning depressed person. I was at work wearing 500 different masks, 500 different situations. And when I got home, I would just sit there. Sometimes I drink, sometimes I won't. But it was one specific day. I was home. And in my brain, my mental capacity was just like deep, dark, no light. And I'm pure light. My aura is light. And my brain told me, or my spirit rather told me, whatever the entity was, the energy in my home was very negative. It told me, you know what, you should just end your life. And you should just drink everything in this apartment because you're not worthy and nobody will miss you. No one will miss you. And it was the most traumatic experience, spiritual experience I've ever experienced in my life. Like, it was that bad. And I was looking around my apartment, and I was looking at the peroxide, the Clorox, the fabric softener, the vinegar, anything I can, and I just had this thirst, this craving to drink all this shit and just end to my life. Like, it was just a craving. And I called my mother and I'm like, hey, Ma, can you just send a cab for me, put me in a cab, because I'm afraid that by the time tomorrow morning comes, you're not going to have a daughter. So she sent a cab for me, and it was like the longest 20 minutes of my life to wait for that cab and just to stay in a space and not look at anything. Because literally, when you're thirsty and you want to drink something, like you haven't drank something for days and days, like, you haven't had water just for days and days and days, and that thirst builds up. That's how I was feeling, to drink all these things to the point that I could smell it. It was the weirdest feeling. So I went to my mom's house and I stayed there for a couple of days. And then I just told myself, I'm like, this is some bullshit. Like, you need to do something about it. And so I started to do work, to do the work, forgiveness and all that stuff. And God, universe, source, higher power, ancestors sent an amazing man into my life, and he helped me through my process, which would have been my second ex-husband. Yeah, I've been married twice, going on my third marriage, but who gives a fuck? Elizabeth Taylor can do it 8 times. Who the fuck am I, right? Anyway. So, he helped me along the way, and he introduced me to Lucinda Bassett and Louise Hay. Louise Hay saved my life. Like, her words and her motivation on her audio and her books, You Can Heal My Life, and all those things there, like, really did a number on me, because I began to understand why I was doing the stuff that I was doing. And I began to understand that the abuse played a really big, really, really, really huge part from the time I was little. And I was carrying it and carrying it and carrying it. And I realized that the little girl was controlling the grown woman. I was a grown woman physically on the external, but on the inside, I was still that little girl, that 7-year-old girl that was lost and afraid and was hiding, didn't want nobody to see her. So I would lie about shit, like kids do, when kids do something wrong, like, did you take the cookie? No, I didn't take the cookie. It was him. He took the cookie, that type of shit. So that's what I was doing. And so it was something Louise Hay said about forgiveness. And I guess universe, higher power, ancestor, spirit guide put into my heart to write a letter to my little self. So I wrote a letter to little Dillis, and I asked her to forgive me, grown ass woman Dillis, who at times knew better and sometimes didn't give a fuck, to forgive me, that everything that I did to her, I didn't mean it. I didn't do it. It wasn't my intention. I was just lost. I couldn't find my way. I had no clue what the hell I wanted. And I didn't know what it was to forgive. I didn't know what it was to, like, really, really, truly love myself. And so I had to write a letter to her. And then the second thing I did was every negative experience that I felt, the pain, the suffering, the heartaches, everything that I've been through, I wrote it all down on a piece of paper. And I read those things to myself, and then I turned around and I burned those things. And it was a release to me to burn it, because the tears were flowing and I was very emotional, and it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. It really did. And then my second ex-husband actually gave me an exercise to do, and he gave me a Post-it with just a piece of paper and a pen, and he told me to write down affirmations. And at the time, I'm like, the fuck is an affirmation? You would think I would know at 31, right? So I started writing down that I'm powerful and I'm beautiful and amazing, and I'm here for a reason in this earth, and I'm purposeful, and I'm a leader, and I'm a warrior, because I've overcome so much, even though I didn't feel like it. Because saying you're a leader, you're a conqueror, you're a queen, you're a king, you're a superwoman, superman, when you're disconnected and attached, you could be saying it to yourself 500 times and you don't feel that shit at all. And little by little, I had to surrender to the forgiveness. I had to surrender to who I was becoming. I had to surrender to the fear. I had to surrender to all the emotions that I've been carrying for years and years and years and years. And I had to open up myself to being open-hearted and open-minded and allowing people to love me, because I had a wall like Fort fucking Knox, because I felt abandoned. I felt like, nobody loved me, and people were around me for all the wrong reasons for what I can do for them, because of how many times I've been abused or disrespected, or allowed abuse and disrespect, and how I abused myself and disrespected myself. So with that, it was just a lot to deal with. However, I learned to love me, and I learned to forgive me. And forgiveness and loving myself and gaining strength and courage after abuse, it doesn't stop. The healing doesn't stop. And sometimes when you are in an abusive situation, you could have like finished it and did your work, and you are no longer that person. Sometimes there's triggers that takes place, that happens in life, that triggers you and takes you back. And it's learning how to say, okay, you're not that person anymore. You're this person. Look at how far you've come. Look at all the accomplishments that you've been through, and all the things that you're experiencing, and how beautiful life is, and you're living, and you did it. Like, excuse me, giving yourself the humbling honor to be who you are, and stepping into your strength, and stepping into your courage, and being courageous and confident, and owning your truth, owning who you are after abuse. And it's like the most hardest thing that we as people have to go through, because it's like, why me? What did I do? And what didn't I do? Did I do something wrong? I'm not doing something right. And then that whole imposter syndrome ends up coming into our heads, where we become negative beings and energy vampires, because we feel like that's how life is. That's how you love people. And it's absolutely not the right way. And you have to have people in your corner that will love you and be there for you. How many times you want to talk about the abuse, or how many times you want to talk about the problem, until you get it out your chest, until you remove it from your energy and your spirit. And those are the people that will be there for you, to give you that blessing that I talked about earlier, of having unconditional love and support, and helping you to feel safe and secure within yourself and with them, in order for you to have beautiful relationships with people, and in order for you to have beautiful relationships with yourself. It's a process. It's a very hard process. It's not easy. And forgiveness, you have to forgive yourself a million times over and over and over again, for stepping back into the past, or not feeling like you're worthy or good enough in your future, your present going into your future. Because at times, like, we're so hard on ourselves, and I feel like people who are abused and they overcome the abuse, they become perfectionists. Like, everything they have to do has to be organized a specific kind of way, because they need to always be in control. That control factor is like a fear. If you're not in control of your life and yourself, when you're abused and you've overcome it and you've got out of the situation, you always have to be in control of something, of your life, of anything. Because that fear of losing control is taking you right back to the abuse, because you're allowing someone else to control you. You're allowing someone else to step in and take over your whole being existence, even if they're not doing it, even if they're showing you, love and respect, and respecting your credibility and your integrity, and they're doing it in a loving way. But because they're telling you something that's for your own good, you feel as if though it's control. So it's actually stepping back and looking at the bigger picture, and saying to yourself, because I had to say it to myself, like, this person is not here to hurt me or harm me. Give them an opportunity to love you, and open up your heart to love them back, and allow them to show you different perspective of what life can be, and what you can create, and the things you can do. And learning to have that faith within yourself and in your being, to know that, whatever happened to you is not your fault, and that you have to forgive you a million times over again until you get that in your head, mind, and heart, that it wasn't your fault. That it wasn't your fault. And continuously every day do the work. Look in the mirror, tell yourself, you know what, you're beautiful. I love you. You're a leader, you're a warrior, you're a conqueror. You've overcome so much. And look back at different things that you've accomplished, your degrees, your diploma, your awards, your kids, your job, whatever it is that you work hard and strive for. That's you gaining your strength and your courage after abuse. That's you putting your foot down and saying, saying to yourself and everyone else, I'm not going to allow this shit to happen to me anymore. I'm going to take charge of my life, and I'm going to create boundaries, and I'm going to say no when I need to say no and I feel guilty about it. And I'm going to be authentic instead of being inauthentic, and make sure that I take my place in this life and do myself an amazing service of having the utmost integrity and respect for me. And if it doesn't sit well with people, it doesn't sit well with people. And owning that, claiming it, embracing it, accepting it, owning that, and surrendering to the process of what is this beautiful gift we call life, enjoying the journey we call life, experiencing life, but on a different spectrum, on a positive note, not on a negative note. You know, there's some people that are like, oh my God, when it rains, it pours. You're speaking that into existence, or like, shit, what else is going to happen after this? You're speaking that into existence. Yes, this happened, but you know what? I'm alive, I'm breathing, I have a roof over my head, I have a car to drive, I have food in my fridge, I have a job, I have some money in the bank, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I can smell, I can see, I can eat, I can hear, I can feel. Like, those things there are absolute blessings that, you know, we have to be grateful for. And if you're able to overcome abuse and gain strength and courage from it and still be able to stand tall and strong, your responsibility and obligation is to help another person that's going through the process, that don't know how to start, that don't know where to go, that don't know who to turn to. That is your job. And that's what I do every single time when I see the signs in someone that they're being abused, or they're going through some type of traumatic experience, or they've gone through a traumatic experience, but they don't know how to heal. That's my job, to lock arms with that person and say, you know what, I got you. I'm here to support you. We can do this together. What is it that you need? And that'll help a person a long way, because oftentimes when you're abused, you don't gain the courage and strength on your own by yourself, because you're your worst enemy, because all you know is abuse. So you're going to sit and isolate yourself in a corner, and then you're going to train yourself in having a PhD and wearing fucking masks all the goddamn time, 500 masks for 500 different situations. And that's what it comes, and then you'll be immune to it. And then you'll lie to yourself and have yourself feel like this is your reality when it's not. It's not. So if you know you've been through abuse and you've overcome it and you gain strength and courage from it, lock arms with someone else who's going through the same situation, just like I'm doing right here. Social media, in person, mentor, rights, and just explain your, share what you've been through, explain the process of how you went through, like I just did, and just help someone else in need, because we have so many young people coming up after us in this life that's being traumatized and abused, and they don't know what the hell to do. They're smiling on the outside and screaming for dear life on the inside, and no one's hearing them. Then you have our younger generation that are in their tweens, or 10 or 7, already in the mind space of committing suicide and taking their lives because of traumatic experiences that they're going through, bullying that they're going through, and nobody's listening to them. No one is listening to them, and they're afraid to speak because they feel misunderstood. They feel like no one's going to pay attention to them. They feel like, people are going to think they're making it up. Last year alone, one of my family members told me that when I was talking about my abuse, when I first came out with it, I was 17 years old when I came out with my abuse. She said to me, oh, to be honest with you, when you said that you were abused, I didn't believe you. I thought you were making it up. That's what she told me. And that was like the most hurtful thing that you want to hear from a family member who has supposed to be been there for you, to protect you and all the other kind of stuff, and say that they love you and support you and care about you. But to hear that, it was crushing. It was crushing. However, because I've been doing my work and I continuously do my work, I gave myself permission to be emotional and cry about it. And then I gave myself permission to be a little bit angry. And then I turned that anger, and I switched it to compassion and love, because honestly, she has no clue what I've experienced, and I have no clue what she's been experiencing in her life. Because when people say shit like that, they've been through some shit and they haven't healed from it, and you're mirroring what it is that they're going through. So if you are open and honest about your abuse, or whatever kind it is, physical, emotional, spiritual, psychological, sexual, and you're able to speak about it freely, kudos to you. kudos to you, and thank you for having the responsibility and making sure it's your obligation to spread the word of how abuse hurts and how it triggers, and share how you heal from it. Share how you've gained strength and courage after your abuse, because it's going to help so many people and be a vessel in another person's transformation, just like I'm doing now. And I'm very real and raw and transparent and serious about what I share. And I know I have to share it, because if I don't, then I'm doing a disservice to so many people who need to hear this. So I think I said enough for today. Anyways, that was Victoria here. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel, Experiencing Life. I'm going to be sharing more videos about just experiences I've been through and just tips and different things that that I've created or approached and just fell into the course of the years in my life to help me heal, to help me become a warrior, a leader, a strong, amazing, beautiful Black lesbian woman. Yes, that'll be my next topic. How I fell into my own and owned my truth and all that good stuff. So stay tuned for next time. Thank you so much for listening. Honor yourselves. Gain courage and strength from overcoming abuse. If you want to email me or inbox me on social media for help or suggestions or tips or anything like that, where or overcoming abuse is concerned, or you don't know who to talk to or where to go or who to turn to, I'm here. I got you. Like I said, I'm here to support, because I've been there and I know what you're going through. So live in your legacy as always. Remember that we only have one life. So we know our birth date. We don't know our death date. And until that time, have your dreams become your reality. Okay? Talk to you guys later. Subscribe and share. Thank you.